supernatural is something that isn't supposed to happen, but it does happen.
And no nation which expects to be the leader of other nations can expect to stay behind in this race for space.
What does it take to convince you that the dead do not always rest in peace?
It is brought to you by Brat's Beard Care. Made here right in Central Florida by Kelly Brat himself. Go to bratsbeardcare.com. Use promo code 3beards, and you're going to save 20% on your entire order and free shipping. So at this time, we would like to welcome back with us Varla Ventura. What I've heard you called the Queen of Scream. Is that what?
That's what Mark calls me. Yeah.
I know. That's what I heard that, so I was. Apologize everybody for my camera. We had some gremlins today, and so my normal setup is not working, and so it's going to be a little shaky on my end. So I apologize. So I'm going to do this. Let's see if this makes it better. How's that?
That's good.
All right. So I got to figure out how to.
There you go. She had the candle for you, Craig. So we're good to go.
I lit stuff. Look, it even has like a spooky guy. Ooh,
I know.
I gotta get the camera angle right. Ooh, spooky guy. So we can have spooky guy
cool.
here.
That's cool. Yeah. So
feel better now.
I hope so.
Yeah. But here, I'll let the guys. Hold on a second. I'm going to try to figure something out. So I'm going to come right back. I'm going to let the guys take over. I'll be right back. Hold on.
That's another spooky candle.
That's all. Where'd you get those? You have those in your shop.
In case there's a lull, I have a lot of props, just so you know. Not kidding. Look. Not kidding.
All right, let's go on here. What in Carzina? Oh, okay. This is what Mark also calls you that too. Carzina.
Oh, the Tsarina of Zombies. Oh, I like that. That's nice.
So I know Craig was talking about we're going to discuss seances, so I don't know if you want to start something like that. Like what goes on and what's involved.
Have you started?
Yeah.
Dive in here.
Just jump right in.
Yeah.
Right in the deep end. That's what we do around here.
First thing you do is you light some candles.
We're doing one tonight? Let's do a seance tonight.
No candles. No candles.
I can't kick out of my own house, but let's do it.
Okay. It's a different view. So let's see. That works? Now I'm not.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Now you're whiter.
We can't do seances tonight.
Well, see that. If I didn't know you better, I'd say you're making fun of me. I'm whiter.
No, you look great. You look great. Your beard's nice and trimmed. Looks great.
Well, hey, before we did the intro, I was getting ready to ask you, did we put the squeak toy away?
You know what? I did. I put the squeak toy away, and I kind of like lured my dog downstairs because I'm upstairs today in the conservatory.
Nice.
And I found the one that was around was actually supposedly the squeaker is like dead, but we'll see.
That's good. Yeah,
you know what? My cat is very reclusive, but I tonight is the night that he's going to jump up on the table. So.
All right, awesome. Well, with that rough opening there, apologize to everybody. So Varla Ventura.
No problem. I see you.
Accomplished author. What did remember what it was? 33 books?
Oh no. I have a lot of short I have a lot of short little e-books. Yeah. I don't really count those.
Yeah, okay. I was counting those in that thing. But
I have 6 books in print.
You can go to varlaventura.net and see her works there as well. Now, do you have a link where if somebody was wanting to get like a signed copy from you?
They need to drop $100 in the mail. In the mail. Actually, no. If somebody wanted to get a signed copy, they could, just reach out to me through Facebook or something like that. And my email is varlaventura@gmail.com. So it's very easy to find me. Everything is just my name. So if somebody really wanted a signed copy, I can arrange that. Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, that's that. And then we've got
No extra charge.
we have on I went to Amazon and I picked up the Paranormal Parlor. I thought that I had ordered that. Yes. I thought I had ordered that already. And I was like, man, where's this book coming? I looked, it was still in the It was still in the shopping cart.
Wow, Craig.
So,
Wow.
yeah.
So
So what I've got to do is,
So you're just going to take my word for it then.
well, the cool part is, so I bought it and they gave me they sent me a sample to Kindle.
Oh, cool.
So I was able to read it.
Artwork in it?
It didn't have a whole lot. It had a couple of pictures. The story that it did include, and I want to bring up to you, I loved. Yeah, it's like it had the illustrations, and it still it had some of those what I keep calling snapshots. You know, the little boxed quotes.
Yeah, call outs.
The call outs. Yes, that's what. And the story that it gave for me, and I loved, was the haunted toothbrush.
Oh, the curious case of the haunted toothbrush.
Yes, and I was so I wanted to, I wanted to get with you that one because I felt that one was a great kickoff because not only was it was like a personal story.
Yeah.
And so tell everybody about it. Yeah,
so I'll just say, like, I had written, oh yes, hello.
Hi.
We won't say anything too super scary or weird right now. So I had written a number of books on these types of topics, you know, fairies and vampires and werewolves and things like that. And I've always been interested in it, but a lot of ghost stories, but I was always collecting other people's stories. And when I started putting the Paranormal Parlor book together, I felt like, okay, this is, you know, the way that I'm going to weave all of these different stories that I've gathered and found and wanted to talk about. I'm going to put them together with my own stories. And turns out I've had more experiences than I really gave myself credit for. So I was looking for it from a lot of outside sources. But the curious case of the haunted toothbrush actually involves my niece. And so basically, when I had my son, he was a baby, and I brought him home, and I lived in this tiny little, well, it wasn't that tiny, but it was an attic apartment in an old Victorian in San Francisco. And I had always had things happen there. I'd had things sit on the end of the bed and sort of press down on me, and strange sounds and things like that. But when I brought my son home, it seemed to me, and, you know, of course I was also in like new mom zombie state, but it seemed to me, or, you know, what we call them, zombies, right? Mombies. I was a mombie, a new mombie. And it just seemed to me like the paranormal activity increased in that apartment. I would frequently hear things in the other room, like toys going off. And I would think that something had just rattled it, or I don't know, a huge truck had gone by. I would try and convince myself. Frequently, anything that had a bell or a rattle, I would hear that, and it would sort of, you know, I'd go in the other room expecting that something had fallen off a shelf and had landed in the middle of the floor, and nothing was out of place. So,
wow.
Now, if you back up a few years prior to that, the curious case of the haunted toothbrush actually took place in the same apartment, and it was before I had a child. That was my two nieces and my nephew were visiting with my sister, and I think our mom was there also. So it was like, you know, grandma and the grandkids and my sister and I. This was before I had my son, and it was actually the same. So I'm trying to remember who was sleeping in what room, but I think that they may have been sleeping in the same room that ultimately became the nursery. So I dubbed it the haunted nursery. And in fact, before I had the baby, this is like completely straight out of like a 1980s horror movie. There was like a big chunk of the stuff was like peeling off of the wall. And so, you know, you got to repaint and get rid of that stuff before a baby comes along. And there was actually this piece behind the plaster of this like circus print wallpaper, which was probably from like the 20s or 30s. Yeah, right. And it was like, okay, this is totally like a haunted nursery situation. So my mom had some kind of experience where she thought there was a woman in the hallway who was not negative, had long dark hair, but seemed like she was watching over, and she thought perhaps this was like a nanny from a previous. And we all agreed that there was a cat. We all agreed that there was the ghost of a cat in this house. And so Curious Case of the Haunted Toothbrush involved my very fierce niece, who I just remember waking up and hearing this sound. So the kids all came, they brushed their teeth all sweetly, and they put their little toothbrushes in a row on the sink in the bathroom. And then everyone went to bed. And at about, 1 a.m, we hear the sound. It's this, buzzing sound. And I think, what is that? And then it goes off. And then it starts up again. So at that point, I get up, and my niece and my mom have said, like, this toothbrush has gone off. We shut it off. It went back on again. We shut it off. And then the third time that it went off, my niece, completely nonplussed, right? She just walks down the hall, grabs it, and then like goes and she puts it in the kitchen or something and like turns it off. So it's the middle of the night, right? So we all go back to sleep, and then we start talking about the next morning, kind of putting the sequence of things together, and no one can figure out why it went off. And I said to my sister, well, the battery must be dying, but then it never did it again. And she monitored it at home for like 2 weeks after that. So
put a camera on it.
just to see if it was like going to go off again. And so we dubbed it The Curious Case of the Haunted Toothbrush. And we are convinced that, and she said, she was only like 7 at the time. I think it was like 7, maybe she was, my one niece was 7 and she was like probably 8, almost 9. And then my nephew was a couple years older. So they're all like pretty little at that point. And she was convinced that, and the thing is, it was so great because she was just sort of irritated with the ghost for waking her up and keeping. But later, when I had my son and we started having more experiences, including me seeing kind of like weird things in the nursery and stuff and hearing him laugh. Now, you have a little baby, right? So, through like hearing them laugh in the middle of the night can sometimes be incredibly disconcerting.
Especially
right?
if you don't have a kid.
Yeah. So you have, terribly frightening. So I felt like there was something very playful, and once there was another child in the house, and once I had my own child, that whatever it was sort of increased, like it got braver. It felt safer. So it never felt negative. I never felt frightened of it in any way. In fact, quite the opposite. It was just a really interesting experience overall. So and then I ended up writing about that and putting it in like the Huffington Post, and it became sort of the infamous, in my family, The Curious Case of the Haunted Toothbrush.
Well, it's just everybody's got those things. It's like Austin still thinks it's possibly just due to his lack of sleep, but as we've found out, it might have been his dad trying to communicate with him.
Yeah, I didn't think about that. Or the greedy ghost, one of the two. I'm not sure.
But it was one, as he was there, when he first moved in. I'm not kidding. We're doing a show. I wish I could remember what show it was. He's sitting here like this, and all of a sudden he looks over. And we're like, what is the matter with you? Dude, I swear, I just heard something over there. So he's either tripping balls because he's lack of sleep, or he's really hearing something. And Mr. Scaredy Cat above me here, I've even given him a EVP recorder to record, and he won't use it. He's got it sitting right there. He won't use it. Do
I still have it? I'll use it. But the best
you better still have my recorder there, sir.
Okay. But like you said, you seemed like it was a playful entity.
Yeah, it seemed relatively positive. Other people might have been frightened by it, but you have to understand that my family, we come from a background in which it's completely normal to spend time in a cemetery. I wouldn't equate us to like the Addams family, but I played the Ouija board when I was a kid. That was like, a regular thing. We kept our roses on, we didn't snip our roses off the top of the stems. But so everyone, so in particular, my sister and I and her children, we all have a penchant for sort of like the dark and the somewhat unexplained. In fact, my very first book, The Book of the Bizarre, I wrote at the time, I believe, I think my nephew was about 9 or 10 years old. And I wrote it kind of with him in mind. It's like, you're my target audience, man. Like my inner 10-year-old that loves the ghost stories and like all the jokes and the puns, like we are unleashing. And he loved it. So that made me feel really good. It's like, all right, life goal achieved, right?
Yeah.
So you had a number one audience if it didn't matter to nobody
I had a number
else.
one fan, no matter what. Yeah. And he's the one who now he designed me that beautiful logo for my website, which is also on my store. And
yeah, that's really cool. No, I mean, when you were talking about the Addams Family, I mean, who doesn't love that scene with, Morticia just snipping the heads off, like you said, snipping the heads off the roses, and don't beat yourself up.
Better.
Yeah. Don't beat yourself up, Gomez. That's my job.
Going back, it was a behavioral. It was probably a child. You would hope, but like my one dad passed away November 30th, 2010. We had instances before that, other things, but what sticks to me the most is my mom was on the opposite side of the house and I was on the other side. She was in the laundry room with a bunch of noises, but we both heard like glass crash. We searched the whole house, found nothing. But we heard it at the almost the same exact decibel as we described it, the decibel sound. And she said, the only thing I can think of is Dad's still here and he broke a Christmas tree when he was a kid. So I don't know if you can't answer that. What would that mean? Why would he, if it was him, just suddenly just make glass break? What sounded like, because we searched the whole house, found nothing. We had no animals to break anything.
Yeah. Well, that's that's something that I've pondered. I was like, how do ghosts communicate with us and on what terms? And I think that is a way that, we don't really know, but that has happened to me enough times. The smell or the sound of something that is familiar. Yeah. And I think that is probably, maybe they can't actually pick up a glass and shatter it, but maybe they can shatter it in this like other dimension that gets your attention. It's something that you take notice of. And one of the stories that someone told me years ago was about this like Christmas ornament that it fell off their tree, and then they kind of walked in and they were like, oh, okay, well, that's just a Christmas ornament. And so they went and they put it back. And later, the Christmas ornament, they came back again, and the Christmas ornament had like rolled down the hall and basically like taken a turn around the corner and was at the foot of their bed. And
that's the creepy part.
It was like, there's no way. So I think that there are some people that can pick up very subtle signs, like a little tug of the hair or the smell of someone's perfume. And sometimes if we don't get those signs, or if we just, we need more than one person to notice, there will be something more dramatic. And that's sort of like, this is a good time to be talking about this type of thing, because as we're going kind of into like Halloween and into this like darkness of winter, there are so many traditions around this time cross culturally about burning brightly in the night, right, and like making your offerings, but two, kind of like there's something about going inward and at the same time reflecting on and remembering the people that we've lost. That's what happens when we go inward, right? We find all those holes in ourselves that are missing because of people that we've lost. And so you were asking earlier about seances and contacting the dead. And I think that's something that humans have been trying to figure out what's going on the other side as soon as they figured out there was something on the other side, right? Yeah. But the idea of actually being able to make contact with the dead, and then specifically to get messages from the dead that we think are important for our own like spiritual or mental or psychological development, that really kind of took hold, especially in the United States. In between 1840 and 1930, you had something called the spiritualist movement. And that was what gave way to the paranormal parlor. That was the sitting around, holding hands, listening to a medium give channeled information, using spirit boards, using knocks and rappings and scrying and various tools. And that is sort of evolved. It evolved. It became incredibly popular after the Civil War. Not surprisingly, right? Because we had like a nation in mourning with no answers and sometimes no one to bury, or just a great sense of loss. And so it kind of faded out around the 20s or 30s when things like magic and magicians were a little more popular, and they were sort of revealing what the tricks were, because of course you had some people who were legitimately going into trance, and then you had some people who were legitimately scamming everyone to get to make a fast buck. So yeah.
Well, it's, you kind of, I don't want to get too much, because that's usually the thing. It's like, here, so let's talk about Aleister Crowley, because everybody gets in that, especially with seances, you have the crystal ball. I'm trying to think, I was trying to think all day how I wanted to frame that thing, because, when you talk about the occult, you talk about seances, Aleister Crowley is one of the first names that most people, they always bring up. And I was trying to figure out, without just going, rehashing all that subject, is, what camp are you on? Or do you think that it was more that he was just a guy that used this as a way to just kind of fulfill his own little fantasies, his own little thing? Or do you think there was actually something to what he believed in his thing? That's why I said it. Yeah. Well, that's I think we are. That's why I said.
So one thing about him that I look at him with a pretty objective point of view, because I have studied him not from the disciple, and I don't mean that in a condescending way, but I have not studied him in a attempt to practice anything that he preached. I have studied him purely from a sort of occult curiosity and some semi pseudo historian point of view. So, for example, he had this series of journals that he wrote called The Equinox, and they were published in these great volumes. And I've read all of them. And in them, I have discovered, and I worked with a pretty well-known Crowley scholar who taught me a lot of these things, Lon Milo Duquette, about there's a lot of Easter eggs in there. So he would do things like write scathing reviews of his own works under a pseudonym. To this day, people do not know all of the pseudonyms that he actually wrote under and published in those things in particular. Occasionally, he would put advertisements in these magazines. But what's really interesting about him that maybe a lot of people don't realize, unless of course you're a member of the OTO, is that his very first, the Book of the Law, right? That was channeled material. He was visiting Egypt, and he was in a pyramid, and he sort of dropped into trance, and somewhat through automatic writing channeled what he thought, he named it something, but he basically channeled this long poem. So I also sort of looked at it from a little bit of that paranormal literary point of view of okay, this is really beautiful, and it's clearly coming from somewhere else. So I think that he knew some things, I think he definitely knew things. I think he was, at some point just called wicked and just owned it, because it's like Marilyn Manson, right? It's like everybody wants to blame him for everything. And then he's this incredibly intelligent, well-spoken man who has contributed a lot to society in general. But you're going to call him wicked because, he wears bondage pants, whatever. So,
yep.
So I would say that I'm in I feel that I have tremendous respect for a lot of the work that Crowley did. I am not a Crowleyite. I'm not a Thelemonite, if I said that right. But I am certainly
I think so.
I recognize his contribution, but who I think is more interesting than Aleister Crowley is Ida Craddock. And she was actually this woman that had sort of a similar relationship with angelic beings, but she was also persecuted for the distribution of lewd materials. So she's a really interesting person. So her name is Ida Craddock, and actually she was, after her death, was actually kind of inducted into the fourth order of the OTO as an honorary member, because Crowley read her works, which I discovered in the Equinox, and then got in touch with this man, was put in touch with this man named Veer Chappell, who wrote an entire book just about Ida Craddock and knows everything there is to know. And she was essentially, this is like mid 1800s. She lived in New York. And what she would do is she would put a little advertisement in the back of a magazine saying, send me $1 and I will tell you what to expect on the wedding night. Now, you consider that this is a time in which women were not even allowed to show an ankle. So talking at all about what to expect on the wedding night, it was like, was insanely crude, right? And I've read it. It's not crude at all. It doesn't actually even give you any juicy details you're hoping for, even in a cloaked Victorian way. It's just like, be clean and be polite, and it might hurt. It's basically like, it's really.
That's awesome.
But she has this fantastic story. So the thing about her, and the reason that she ended up in like Crowley's manuscripts, is that she claimed that she was not married. And she claimed that she was married to an angelic being named Soph, and that he would come into her window at night, and she got all of her information about the outer world, the great beyond, and what to do on your wedding night, all from this angelic being who told her she had this mission. Her story goes on. So she is distributing this material. She's in her early 30s at this point, a spinster, right? Because she's not married. Mm-hmm. And there's this guy named Anthony Comstock, and he is the head of the Society for the Suppression of Moral Vice. So basically, he's like the buzzkill of anything everywhere. Like, he is just running around making sure that nobody is having any fun. They're not having sex. They're not drinking. They're not smoking. They're, not, I don't know. They're wearing itchy clothing that goes down to ther ankles. I'm not really sure what his deal was, right? Anyway, he was wealthy because you've ever heard of the Comstock lode? No pun intended. It was a silver vein, and he had a tremendous amount of money from this, and so he had this endless budget, and he persecuted Ida Craddock for years. I think 8 to 10 years. He chased her and tried to get her arrested, and eventually he had her tried in court for distribution of lewd materials through the U.S. Postal Service, which is a felony. And she was tried, she was convicted, and she was given a sentence of basically spending her life in a women's institution, where no doubt she would have been subjected to a tremendous amount of experimental therapy.
Oh yeah.
And instead, she took her own life, and she left 2 letters. One she left to her mother saying, "Don't blame yourself. This is how it needed to be. I love you. You raised me well," basically. The other letter, guess who it was addressed to?
Comstock.
Anthony Comstock. You did this, my blood is on your hands, and history will show that you are going to be proven wrong. And so her story is just, and that all came to me through Aleister Crowley. So in that regard, I think that, if you think nothing else of him, don't dismiss his works because you don't necessarily believe in every aspect of his magical teachings. There's a lot of hidden gems there that can be gleaned.
Well, that's where I kind of wanted to get you, because it's that one thing. It's like you get some of the really far out there stuff, and then you get some of the stuff like this. I mean, that's part I love having you on here. Is now I didn't even know about Ida before.
Oh, she's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I was reading this, and that's got to be a haunted place, because I mean she killed herself by slashing her wrists and in inhaling natural gas. So she sliced her, cut her wrists, and suffocated herself with natural gas.
Yeah, that's what she is. Isn't she beautiful? Yeah. And,
Yeah,
and look at her with her like the collar up to here. You know, she was distributing lewd materials. I mean, right? No.
Telling people about
Come
what happened on wedding night. Lewd materials. Are you
Yeah,
serious?
Yeah.
and it was honestly, it was just like, I mean, if you were a young woman then, you were expected to know nothing, and it was a terrifying thing. So she was actually, trying to help everyone out. Really
Yeah. I mean, wow.
crazy. I know.
No, that's cool. Like I said, I learned about the pirate lady from Scott, from you on the last time. Yeah, yeah,
From Ireland, yes.
yeah. And now, now I like this. I'm like, wow, this is crazy.
Read a book or something.
Maybe we should have. Yeah, maybe there's some way to find her, like on Amazon or VarlaVentura.net to find out about these books.
Just about like these, just about the women, because there's a chapter dedicated to it in Paranormal Parlor. Because you find out about one and then you learn about another. There's this incredible story of this woman named Emily Grant Hutchings, and she channeled an entire novel through the Ouija board that she claimed was the lost novel of Mark Twain.
Oh,
And
wow,
it's an incredible story because possibly the best part of the story is the introduction she writes, because in the introduction she describes their interaction with the Ouija board and making it basically into like this psychic typewriter where they put parenthetical marks and additional punctuation, because supposedly this ghost of Twain was getting tired of running at the board and trying to get the parentheses and having to spell out, put parentheses here through the Ouija board. So over the course of a year, her husband, I don't know why her husband was there, but he was, credibility, I suppose. And this was like 1915. Oh, hello. Look at you. You have like so many friends in your life, Like, look at you.
Yeah.
You just
I know.
look at it's
It's a zoo over there. It's a zoo.
You are heavily loved there. That's nice.
That's right.
Yeah, we got a lot. We have
You got a lot.
Trying to get to it.
Yeah. So she channeled this whole novel with the help of a medium. And just to back up a second, so the definition of spiritualism technically is to make contact with the dead in order to get messages to the living that can better their lives. And it pretty much always involved a medium. So in most of these circumstances, there was a medium. If there wasn't a medium, the person themselves became a medium and channeled. And there are a lot of instances of that. But Emily published this book. It's called Jap Heron, and it's basically about this like young publisher in St. Louis, sort of, learning the ropes from an older publisher. I mean, it's Twain-ish. I'm not a huge Twain scholar or fan, quite frankly, so I can't tell you how accurate it is. But this is what she claimed. And so she writes this novel, and then it goes on. Wait, what's happened? What are those?
These are the newest additions to the family.
Those are new puppies.
Oh, for a second, I somehow did not notice that you were now cuddling puppies. Yes, one must cuddle puppies.
Yes.
That's right.
The newest additions to the family.
When one is recording one's podcast, puppies must be present at all times, if possible.
That's awesome. Yeah. So, I wanted to get, because we talked about doing the occult seances and stuff. So what is your, we talked last time we were on about Ouija boards, it's like myself, I don't have one in my house.
I said we're going to buy Craig one for his house.
It's
a giant one.
It's
a really big one.
It's not in my house at all. I mean, I've got other stuff. I mean, like I said, I'm learning how to, Oracle deck, and runes. I'm learning how to do those things, but I don't. What's that?
That'll suit you.
The
runes will suit you. Yeah.
Well, and it's awesome that you say that, because
you're probably good at runes. It's just like.
Yes. Well, it's funny. It's funny you say that, because our last show that we had with Chris Garcia, that psychic, he's like, "You're something that you're holding back." And since you said that, I found myself becoming more and more drawn to I've had them behind me here, but I'm getting more and more to where I want to actually just start taking it up.
Were you raised religious?
Yes.
Yes.
And that's,
like Chrissy's like,
yeah, and I've swung, and this is kind of the thing. I don't know what it is. I've swung more to the Gnostic side, where I believe in a creator. I just don't know if where I fit. I mean, as I said, I look around. There's too much around us that's connected for this to be just something that just happened by random. That a random things just. Yeah.
Sure.
Because I mean, just what are the likelihoods at random that we would all of us are going to die if bees go away? Mm-hmm. I mean, that's
random. That's science.
Yeah, there's something highly connected. If a human will disappear from this planet if the bee goes away, I mean, there's something more than just a random act, in this whole thing. But, before we get too far off, so I've just been drawn to that, and kind of like for you, like seances. Like the Ouija board, I feel that opens up a portal. Like for me, more like a seance is more like you're doing kind of like same thing, like, with between tarot cards and you're doing something more of a communication. Like if you're doing ghost hunting, you're something that's there. You're not really opening up a portal.
Oh, so are you concerned you're going to open up a portal with the Ouija board? Because a lot of people feel that about the Ouija board, and people that I know that really like it, there is no singular object on the subject of occult that is more charged than the Ouija board. People love it. They hate it. They want to throw it out the window. They never want to see it again. They're addicted to it. There's very rarely are people kind of middle of the road about it. And I think that a big part of that is that it is very visceral. Right? It's a very tactile experience. An EVP is sort of digital and it's over there, and you usually actually don't hear it immediately. You listen to it later. The Ouija board is and I've done them, and I don't do them extensively, but I've done them enough to. I don't even have one right now, okay, guys? I've done them enough to know what that feels like, and I've done it alone. To know what that feels like when the thing is moving around, and to worry and wonder what is going to come across. So I think there's some people like the host of Coast to Coast, George Norrie. Oh man, he hates Ouija boards.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Every time they come up, he really dislikes them. So some people have had very negative experiences, which I think is very common to have a negative experience. I think your sense of awareness is very heightened with that. And there's something about you're all kind of laying your hands on the same object and it's moving around that it puts you, it's very hard to deny if it's right in front of you unless you completely distrust the people around you. And then that's a whole other thing that brings up fears and things like that, right? It's like, oh, who's touching this planchette? But I do think it can be used responsibly, much in the way people use tarot or other tools. And there are a number of psychics that do use the Ouija board to make contact deliberately. And I also think that you might want to just ease into it. You might want to start with trying to kind of ask a question or ask for signs before you dive deep into the, moving the board around. But it's definitely not something you should do alone. I don't think, I don't know. I actually think there are no evil objects. There are just evil people. That's my personal. Having said that, I have touched things that have different energy, and I do think objects and things can hold energy. But I don't know. I think if you go into a seance or something afraid, then you're going to easily be afraid of the results.
Or be a target.
What's that?
Or be a target. Something since when you're scared and they're gonna come and target you because you're an easy pick on.
Right, and then the other thing actually, and this is actually pretty as legitimate as it can be when you're talking about the astral plane. but there are there are things I think that can like ride. There are things that ride the coattails. And when I was young, about 7 years old, my sister and I had gotten a Ouija board for Christmas. We were like so stoked. Although I was a little disappointed because I did think it was like, Monopoly or Clue or something thing size under the Christmas tree. So Ouija board, great. So we start doing this Parker Brothers Ouija board. And this is like so 1980s, right? It's like 1980s childhood. You get the Ouija board. And
What's the stupid thing with letters?
Made contact with it. We made contact with something. My mom ended up taking that board away from us because she felt that we had made contact with something that she couldn't verify what it was. And I don't think she expected that. I don't know what she was thinking, honestly, because of course, something's going to happen. You got two sisters moving a thing around of course something's going to happen. Children of witches. What did you think? We're just going to like nothing? Just like sit there and look at it. And of course,
that's that's my thing. It's not a fear of the object. It's just, because that's one of the things, being a novice, I don't know how to close like a circle of protection. I don't know how to do these things to close this off.
With your mind. You throw down a little salt beforehand and you close it with your mind. You just have to believe that you can do that.
Where are you located again?
Me?
Yes, sorry.
I live outside of St. Paul now. In
all right, so I guess we need to go to Minnesota. And how do you
aren't you guys in Florida? Like winter's coming.
I've never seen snow, so I'll take a trip.
I'm the only one that has the natural because Oregon, so I could come up there and survive. Those two up there are going to freeze to death.
You guys are both from Florida originally.
Yeah, they're going to freeze to death. I mean,
Layers.
No. Chris went to West Virginia. And it snowed that much, and I was freezing. I'm like, yeah, you're not going to make it.
Okay, now I actually went to Key West last year. Have you guys been down to Key West and done any of that?
And you were hot.
Yeah. No, I was in heaven, actually. It was like March. It was perfect. I was in heaven, and I went and I saw Robert the Doll and all that fun stuff. So it was pretty great.
Now, are you... That's cool. Just real quick, but like Robert the Doll, stuff. Do you have any apprehension to holding it?
Would I hold Robert the Doll?
Because you have those ones where they say, "Do not touch this." Behold.
I do not think anyone would let me hold Robert the Doll, but if somebody offered, I feel like that's a chance in a lifetime, and I would hold Robert the Doll.
So, do you think this has just been a build-up and there's not really much to it, or do you think this is something that's
so it's creepy? That thing is creepy. It's creepy in a like rotting doll way. It's weird how children were treated 100 years ago way. It's just a little sailor suit and it's creepy.
Yeah, maybe Austin can, since I'm on my phone, it's a little harder, but if Austin can bring up that picture of Robert the Doll for anybody that hasn't seen it. Yeah, because some of those some of those toys and stuff, I mean, those are some pretty
I just learned about a new
what the hell is that?
It's not that new, but it's I think it was established in 2018, but it might have been 2016, I don't remember. And
what
it's look at him. Look. Scary he was.
I would pick it up and rock it. And
have you been there? It's like this whole thing where you are not even allowed to take a picture of it until you like ask Robert and say thank you, Robert, after you take a picture. And like there's this whole wall of letters from people who didn't do that, and then they felt like they were cursed and like that. Yeah, it's
Oh no, there's people that they said that they take a picture and then they're like, ha ha, and then stuff starts happening to them, car wrecks, hospitalizations, and then eventually they're writing, it's like, I'm so sorry, please forgive me, it's just.
Dear Robert, I was wrong. And then, so we asked so we had like, kind of cruising through there on the tour, but then we asked like, there's like the docent who's actually like watching to make sure you don't steal anything from the gift shop and stuff. And we asked, so they're like the person that's really there a lot. And we asked her actually, my mom went over, I went on this trip with my mom, and she, was like, what's going on here? And she said that there were many, many times that she had seen that, it had it had actually moved positions and things like that. Like there were a lot of stories that the docents had that weren't even necessarily publicized that much. But yeah, he's creepy. I didn't have any kind of like weird. I mean, it was just kind of a whole weird. I mean, he's a weird, creepy doll. But I did have an experience in Key West in the Shipwreck Museum, which was very unexpected.
Oh, wow.
We were, I mean, semi-unexpected. To be honest, we were on a ghost tour, so it wasn't like, oh my God, nothing's going to happen. But honestly, as into the supernatural as I am, I kind of get a little bit cynical in those situations, and I'm just like, I love the history of it, but like, oh, I'd have to have the experience for myself to really believe it. And I almost passed out in the Shipwreck Museum, and I didn't say anything to anyone. I told my mom later. I just like kind of held on to the railing there. And what happened is we walked in, and they were telling us some stuff. I don't remember what they were telling us. And I had that feeling like when you're deep underwater and the pressure is pressing in on you, and not shortness of breath in that like panic attacky kind of shortness of breath, but just like extreme pressure on my chest and just like the weight of it all, and a little bit dizzy. And so the woman was just talking the whole time, so I just held on to the side of the thing, and I didn't say anything at the time because I didn't want to be the person on the ghost tour being like, I just had an experience. So I just it's like, okay, well, let's see what happens. And I stepped away from the area, and I felt a little better. And then I gave myself a couple minutes. I stepped back in, and I felt it, but to a lesser extent. And I didn't say anything. I told my mom about it that night. And because my mom would have been the one like, she's having an experience.
Yeah. I liken it to like when you go to the dentist and they get your x-rays and they put that lead protector on you.
Yeah.
But it won't hurt you.
It doesn't. Well, it's just you feel that weight, and that's why I said it's not so much like you said where you can't breathe. It's just you feel like this thing is just on you, like this heavy blanket.
I've never had that before. Have you had that feeling before?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So that makes me feel more legit then.
Well, the craziest one is, I said, I don't think I've ever told these guys. Growing up in Ontario, I had a friend. Their house number was actually 666.
Oh, hell no.
So that was a crazy thing, at the beginning. So everybody freaks.
Yes.
Everybody freaks out about it. So I'm staying at their house. This is the old school Nintendo. So we're playing Mario Brothers. So this is long before you have all the gameplay and all that stuff. So we're sitting there. We turn everything off. We go to sleep. I wake up. It's on, and it's playing. And everybody else is asleep. And so it was that thing, and you feel that kind of that weight.
Yeah.
And it was, and that's one of the only real ghost experiences I've had. I've had a lot of stuff where there's like impressions where you feel that in the back, it's just, they always talk like the hair, you feel like there's something off. Like you go, and it's not the one like, going like you're like, oh my God. You just go in, you get that impression like there's something off in this room. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
It just feels off.
Well, I have I've included her stories in many books, but I have a friend. I think she was commenting earlier. Her name is Alex. And
Alex. She's on there right now.
Alex. Yeah, there she is. No! Yeah, that's her.
Yeah,
and she and I mean, that's one of the things we bonded over when we met. I think we've been friends for like 30 years. And I mean, like 15 years. But
a long time.
She and I, like, we immediately started sharing ghost stories. In fact, many of her ghost stories, I think I have a ghost story of hers in the Book of the Bazaar, in Paranormal Parlor, and possibly even Beyond Bazaar. But she's had some pretty profound, like, impossible to dismiss type things. One in which she, so like the hair, she felt like something was tugging her hair. We've had that feeling. You see like the tap on the shoulders, and then she looked. She was like cleaning this basement, of course, right? You're like in a creepy basement, and she was cleaning it. She was helping these people who were gonna like flip the house and sell the house. And we're only it's 29 forever. I would not want to go back to 29. It was a rough year. So anyway, she's cleaning it, and she feels that like kind of tug, and she actually had felt it a couple times, and she never had felt it since, and she just thought, well, it's like a spider web or something like that. And then she felt it again pretty strong, and then she happened to be, you know, she was inside, so there were windows, like whatever the like kind of whatever they call them, like the recessed windows for a basement, and the egress windows. And she looks up, and she can actually see a piece of her hair like this, where she has been, like someone's been, where she could feel someone pulling it, but then she saw it standing straight up, and I think she left promptly. So, yeah, I mean, you know, there's one thing to understand, and I think it's important for people who are interested in the paranormal and interested in making contact, but maybe feel like, oh, I don't have any powers, or I don't. There are many variations on what people have, and what the Irish call the second sight, right? What is considered like a paranormal or a psychic gift. And there are many variations on that. Some people are clairaudient. They can hear things. Other people are clairsentient, and they can sense and also smell things. And then there are people who are clairvoyant. And, oh yeah, she had really bright hair. So that's how she could tell that her hair was being pulled. Ghost was like, what is this? Smells great. Her hair smells great.
But yeah,
I've never seen hair like this before.
but when I worked for the funeral home, like, that is one of the most eeriest places at night. Even though you've been to this funeral home 100 times, you go in, the more you go into the embalming room, and it's just like this feeling. It's always cold and clammy in there, and you're like,
somebody's like innards were sucked out in this room, and like how you know, like
it is so creepy. I mean, I did it.
How could it not be? You know, that's just like extreme, right? It's like absolutely not. There's no chance you're alive anymore. We are going to guarantee that you are dead by sucking every ounce of fluid out of your body and pumping it full of something that will, you know, replace it. And,
I mean, it's crazy. I did it for over like 5 years, and there's some places I hated to go, even though I've been there a million times. Crematory, I'm like, oh, I hate this crematory.
Now, do you think it's because the people, you know, that may have not passed on are still, you know, still in that room? Do you think that's what adds to that vibe of just, or is it just the fact that it's a dead body, so it creeps people out? Because I mean,
no,
I get it. You know, you walk in there and it's not. It's like you have that natural thing, like, oh, it's dead people. You know, just. But then the thing is like you said, like Chris, there's just something else. You feel something else.
Yeah, well, it's distinct because I think, you know, I've been in tons of cemeteries and funeral parlors and things like that where I didn't feel anything. And then I remember there's this weird place, because I grew up in San Francisco, and there's this weird place, not that weird, but it's a columbarium. And a columbarium is essentially like where all the, it's like a
mausoleum?
It's a mausoleum for ashes.
For ashes,
so it's called a columbarium. And so when you go in, and this one was like a little archway, and so there's all these like repository things, right? But it's all for the ashes. And I love to be in cemeteries, and I'd always wanted to go in this place. And I went in that place, and I swear to God, I could not get out of there fast enough. I don't know what it was. But I was not vibing with the vibe, you know. I was like, I am, and I never went in it again, even though you would think if you looked at my resume, that's the first place you'd find me, because there are a lot of the cemeteries in San Francisco were actually moved, which is also another incredibly creepy story. They basically, real estate got too valuable, and the city got crowded, and so they moved.
Wow.
I think 6 cemeteries from the proper part of San Francisco out to Colma, where they started burying bodies kind of on the outskirts. And you can still, there's remnants of them all over the city today. There's a park, Buena Vista Park, where you walk the path going up to the top, and it's in the Haight-Ashbury, and the gutters are lined with old headstones. It was during the 1910 when they when they moved the bodies, and periodically throughout. So some say it was for sanitary.
Thanks for watching, Roberto.
Oh, it's so glad you like it. Some say it was for sanitary purposes. Being a native San Franciscan, I'm gonna say it was probably more likely real estate value. But there's this whole golf course that was like built on top of the cemeteries, and they put a beautiful museum there. And occasionally they'll expand the patio and they'll just find skeletons. The skeletons.
My God.
So when your
whoops.
So
I mean,
when
because
your golf ball goes off the green and you can't find it, you're like, what?
Can you imagine, like, your relative? You live in Boston, and your relative was buried in San Francisco during the gold rush, and then you've just moved on, and then you get a notification. It's like, maybe you could just move the headstone. How much is that going to cost? Oh,
yeah, right.
The workers.
I don't know.
The workers when they dug it up. Casket occasionally would pop open, and they just sweep it. Just kick it off to the side.
There's actually crazy pictures online of like, and the other argument for it, I should say, in defense of whomever made this decision, the other argument for it was that there were some cemeteries that were very, very neglected in the city proper. And so people felt that they were, I don't know, attracting transients. Oh, transients in San Francisco? Can't imagine.
Yeah.
Like, that's what that city's built on. Come on. But anyway, it's very interesting, and sort of like just that whole idea of moving any kind of sacred burial place, which of course, ever since basically Europeans came to the United States, that's what they're, the Americas, they've been just shoving things out of their way. So it's not an unusual story, but there you go. So that is probably
it's crazy.
The one in right in near the Panhandle there. Yeah, and there they are. They're just moving it,
digging them up. Occasionally a skull gets in the way. You just take the skull and toss it behind you. Hopefully Bob will catch it and throw it in the bag.
Like, sides of the coffins like jutting out, and
crazy, man.
It's insane. And I have an old map. Yeah, there you can see some of the things. I have an old map of San Francisco that shows all the cemeteries. I have it framed on my wall. It's absolutely fascinating.
There's a picture of the tombstones being used.
One. That one still is there. That's in the Presidio. Yeah.
Wow.
But those pictures of like WPA workers who were, paid in the 20s to just clear out the rubble. And then my brother, he is still in the San Francisco Bay Area, and only to the devil. And then he this threw me off. Sorry. Anyway, he works construction, and he drives like a cement truck, and he's told me that there have been a few places in that area where he first showed that picture, where he said, like, occasionally people will come out of their house and be like, "Oh, I found this headstone in my backyard. Do you want it?"
No.
I was like, next time that happens, say yes. But it's a crazy story, and it's one that I did not know as a child growing up there. That I the way that I first learned about it is looking at an old map, because I've always been attracted to cemeteries. I have found them, and I will tell you, as like a young woman moving to a new city, I moved to Portland, Oregon for a while, and it's scary. But guess what's not scary? The place where nobody goes, and where it's okay to be kind of like huddled over, writing in your journal and occasionally crying. It's like, oh, the cemetery. This is safe. No one's going to harass me here. And so when I moved back to San Francisco as an adult, I really missed that kind of like peaceful sanctuary that you could find in the cemetery. And so I was looking at an old map one day, and I thought, that's funny. And I'd heard stories over the years here and there, but then I had a friend say, "Oh yes, the Buena Vista Park," and he took me on this walk there, and you can see pictures where I have them on my laptop here. You have pictures where you can see where it said "died." They are actual headstones that are used to pave the gutters.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, I think when Austin was flipping through there, you saw one where they were stacked there. Yeah, it's just.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah, I was going to backtrack real quick. When you were in Portland, did you get a chance to do the underground tour?
I don't think I've ever done the underground tour. I've been in a couple of those tunnels, not on a tour, but I don't know. Did I ever do those? Alex will know if we ever did an underground tour. I don't remember ever doing an underground tour. I remember spending some time down in some like places we probably shouldn't have been.
There's a couple places you can take them. The Shanghai tunnels.
Oh, the Shanghai tunnels. Oh, well, I used to
Oh,
drink at the Shanghai tunnel, but that was different.
oh my God! I don't know if Chris and Austin know about these things.
Mhm.
What this used to be is the reason it's called Shanghai is these people would be taken as basically slaves.
Yeah.
They'd take drunk, homeless people. They'd come in here. There's a trap door. They'd
They
fall through
weren't
the.
always drunk and homeless.
Yeah, they fall through the
Sometimes
trap
they were
door,
trapping young men that were in the bar for one too many. And they would
and
just,
then they're and that's where the term you get shanghaied.
yep. And then
Did
the
you-
next thing you know, you wake up on a boat and you're bound for Singapore and you better row.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's in. This is all over the place, and you can go on these things. San Francisco,
There are a
Portland.
lot of them in San Francisco. Yes, yes, because there was such a big, there's such a big merchant and commerce industry there. So, yeah.
And there's in kind of tying into like the stuff is like I've always wondered how many of those that died stuff their spirits have come back to that location of their taking, and that's caused some paranormal activity. Maybe that's why Portland's so weird. I mean that's
so weird.
yeah.
You know what though? Like that's the big question really when it comes to the afterlife and the paranormal.
Mm-hmm.
It's like not just like what is it and what's in the great beyond, but why are there these experiences that some people have? And I have in 2020, one of the conclusions that I have come to, which will, possibly be fleeting. But I think that some of it, at least, I think we have talked for years about the unrequited things in life, right? This is the whole idea of the ghost of Christmas past and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Is like you're full of regret, so you come back to try and make amends. I have a different theory. And Chris, you worked in funeral homes, so you might have some insight into this. But I think what may be actually the cause and the catalyst for a lot of hauntings and appearances is the lack of the good death that here we are in 2020 where a lot of people have died without someone holding their without a loved one holding their hand. People
exactly.
are there and taking care of them, but there's this and again, this was also, you think of the Civil War and you had like mass casualties. That's when embalming became popular because there were such mass casualties. And there's this, and there's this unrest, right? It's not just like whether or not you were actually like murdered in this horrible way, but did somebody hold your hand? Did somebody wash your body? Did somebody place bread upon your chest in order to draw the sins out of your body and then eat that so that you could go to the afterlife? There are all these rituals that may or may not have taken place. So
time out. Okay, bread on the chest, so you could eat. So no, this is. I'm not gonna lie. That's the first time I've heard that you put bread on their chest so that way it draws the stuff out, and then see that part wasn't. It was
you never heard of that
then.
One?
Eating it part. I'm like,
yeah,
Chris has heard of it. You know what, Chris? You're one of the few people who has actually heard of it. You do. You put food on, and I had in the last chapter. Of course, it's got to be the last chapter of my book. I talk about these different death rituals, and the sin eating is you take bread, you put it on the corpse, and then sometimes it's family members who eat it and absorb your sins before you go into the next life. There were also professional sin eaters that you could hire to come and eat them.
I didn't know about that. I didn't know about that one.
I don't know. How do you put that? How do you put that out there? Help wanted. I need somebody to come around eating pieces of bread off dead people.
You want to help people out? You're not afraid to live in sin, right?
We done got a new job, Craig. That's a new career.
Yes.
I just
eating it like, there's extra sin in here.
Well, this is where my mind's going. Okay, so say that person in their life, it was terrible. I mean, just a horrible person. You're putting the bread on there. You're eating this bread. This bread is now basically toxic from evil doings. Yeah. I'm like, doesn't that affect you? Like the people eating the bread?
You're used to it. It's like the guy who embalms bodies. Doesn't that affect him? right?
They,
Or-
they eat their lunch. They eat their lunch in the embalming room.
But
Okay,
he's not eating the dead body.
no, he's like draining all the fluids and like
Oh.
reinjecting something into
All right,
it.
so
Totally,
let's say-
totally, much better than yeah. I don't know. You know, the practice is interesting because I went down the sin eater road, and there were a lot of practices like serving food right off of the coffin, which was and drinks, which was a practice that kind of was a measure of what kind of person you were, and you know what kind of like how much you were contributing to the society. Now we have memorial services, and we bring like ham sandwiches, and we you know whatever, drop off a lasagna.
So I'll do shots off the belly button. I mean, what are we doing?
Hey, you are planning my funeral. That is it. You're in. You're planning my funeral.
You said, okay, even if there's like professional sin eaters.
Yeah, I'm gonna need.
so, like,
I am going to need an army of sin eaters. Just
That's what I'm saying. So I'm a professional sin eater. I've been eating sins my entire life. You're gonna eat a lot of loaves of bread if I'm eating everybody's sins.
Well, it could just be a muffin. You can be like, it could be like a muffin.
And did you hear back in the day that the casket used to sit in the house for 24 hours for the unrest period, so that
Yes.
so they didn't come back to the house. So
Yes.
they would guard each family member would take turns guarding the casket overnight while the loved one lay in the living room of the
Yes.
house.
Yes, and that's actually part of what a wake is. Really, it was to sit and make sure they didn't wake back up.
God. Oh,
Nobody's weak.
I want to go
We're
back
watching-
in the day.
we're
I
just-
want to go back in the day with those situations. Like, all right, oh shit, she's
Did they-
awake. Oh
Did
God.
they wake up? Yeah, did they wake up? No.
Wait,
Oh,
we have,
time to
I
eat the
don't know
bread.
how much time we have, but can I tell the story of half-hanged Maggie?
Oh, yeah, please.
Okay.
I got to get off this bread,
Totally
death
like
bread.
it. This is a story that I think I first heard it from I have a friend in Scotland who knows how much I love ghost stories, and so he mentioned this story, and then I found it again in a book of Scottish ghost stories, and it's the tale of half-hanging Maggie. And so this is probably from I would guess like the 1600s, like between 1600 and 17 late 1600s, early 1700s. Peak grave robbing era, basically.
Oh.
I mean, medical science advancement. So this woman was hanged for a very egregious sin. She had found out that she was pregnant, and she had taken many abortifacients to rid herself of the baby. And this, of course, was a sin, and so she was hanged for it. And they hanged her. She died. They dropped her body down, and they threw her body into onto this cart. And her family, of course, came and collected her body, and they put her body onto the cart, and they made their way back home to their village. Well, about halfway, they stopped for a pint and left half-hanging Maggie. Oh, dear Maggie. They left her in the cart as they went inside, and they had their drinks. And in Maggie's honor, of course. So Maggie wakes up, and she comes to, and she doesn't know what's going on. Of course, she's been in this state of, oxygen deprivation, is unclear what's happening. And a passerby happens by and sees her and kind of helps revive her and sends for the doctor and gets the family from outside. And sure enough, half-hanged Maggie is good to go. And so she goes on and, she lives a life. She ends up living to be, I think, into her 60s, which was quite old then. So she lived a long, good life, and she had like 6 children. And they called her half-hanged Maggie.
Oh,
But she came back from dead.
can you imagine that you're all drinking a pint, and all of a sudden the person that you're having your little celebration for just comes walking in? Hey, what's going on?
I feel like that's every person in mourning's dream come true.
Oh,
I would be thrilled.
I mean, when you're saying threw her on the cart, the first thing that popped in my head was Monty Python. Bring out your dead.
I always think that too. Bring out your dead.
Oh God, I'm sorry. I'm still just all messed up over the death bread thing.
The bread eater.
I'm just.
Wait. I think I might have an even more. Let me see if I have a more gruesome detail about it in here for you.
Oh, please.
Okay.
I can't believe I've never heard of this before.
Craig, we got a new job. I mean,
No. I would be terrible at it.
What we have. Oh, no, you'll like this. In Old Scotland, the following list is standard service for a funeral spread. Bread and cheese with ale and porter to wash it down. Whiskey with bread and cheese. Rum and biscuits. Brandy and a currant bun. Wine and shortbread. Let's see. Here's... Okay, so then there's this other tradition of sponge cake at funerals, which was a Welsh tradition that well-to-do would have, upon their death, they would have these little sponge cakes baked. And at their funeral, the cakes, they would usually be in like the pocket or a basket, and the pastor would take, and a family member, they would take them out and they would pass them, and they had to go over the coffin, and then they would go to you like over the coffin. Kind of the same thing, but the Sin Eater is really the ultimate. I think that's pretty much, a little bit of bread. Let's see.
That's crazy.
Dogs and cats were kept out. Okay. In Scotland, Wales, and Ireland, a once common funeral practice was the art of sin eating. A piece of bread is placed upon the salt by someone who has been previously designated as the sin eater. The sin eater would eat the bread, therefore absolving the dead of their sins. This was sometimes a paid position. The Scottish term dishaloof comes from the custom, but may also refer to the placing of plates in 3 places on the body. I've seen actually paintings of this where there's like a body laid out and there's plates on them. And I actually maybe have seen like Egyptian images similar. They're in 3 places on the body or sometimes in the hearth. The Welsh, too, practiced sin eating, and there are even examples of sin eating as a profession. The person was sent for at the appropriate time. It's very dark, and I'm very blind here. So, to eat the bread from the dish of salt upon the bread. Oh, so it was bread upon salt upon the breast of the corpse. So, little salty bread. But unfortunately for the sin eater, he was often shunned by regular society and lived a somewhat reclusive and admonished life, as it was believed.
I can see why.
Sins in his own life.
He's a sin.
Occasionally, in place of bread and salt, you will find accounts of an apple or orange quartered and laid upon the body, which the sin eater was expected to consume. Yeah, so it was kind of like the guy with the hunchback that was digging the graves. It was typically someone who was on the fringe of society.
It says the last known sin eater in United Kingdom, Munslow, died in 1906.
Aw.
Damn.
I wonder who ate his sins.
Nobody.
That's crazy. That's something cool to know.
Isn't it weird and gross? Yeah, it's like so gross, but also so amazing.
No, things like before I forget. I mean, because I looked at the time too. It was just one of the questions I wanted to ask you. Especially when it came to like seances and stuff. What is the because there's always the importance of the candle, and I've looked at it. Is there really what I'm trying to think how to phrase this the best way, but I mean basically the dollar, go to a dollar that you pick up this cheap white or black candles. To me, it seems like that would not be as effective as something either handmade or create, because it's like an offering to the one whatever you're summoning. And if you give them a cheap offering, well, obviously you're not going to get a quality response.
I mean, yes, obviously a handcrafted item, hand poured candle is always going to have whatever kind of energy you put into it. So it's going to have more magical significance if you are really imparting that. But I'll be perfectly honest with you. Sometimes when I just want like a quick little fix, I use birthday candles. I'm nice. Let's just hex this real quick. We'll just burn this down all the way down to the bottom, because one of the things typically is that you don't necessarily want to put out a candle that you have lit for an offering. Yeah, right. So birthday candles, they go out so fast, right? They're out and this is like witch life hack. Yeah, just use a birthday candle. They come in all colors. You can get black ones.
Okay.
But I think more importantly than that is the intention that you're putting into it. So any object is significant only in as much as you put into it. You can we need these objects to transform our, rudimentary kind of Neanderthal minds into this other space. We need fire and smoke and candles and smells and all that. We need these things to transform us, but you don't really need it to have that experience. You think of like Buddhist monks that can just like go into trance because so romantic, Roberto. Yes, of course.
Roberto.
What are you going to summon? I'm going to summon them with ocean spray and lavender.
Spray.
Those are the ones you gotta watch out for. Those some of the bad ones.
I would say, like, what it really comes down to is the intent that you're putting in it. So if you're putting a lot of thought and intention into something, and you've procured a very special candle, and you're putting a lot of, here's my dog's come in, but she's just drinking water loudly in the background
for now.
I just think you can make it work with what's on hand, if that's what's on hand and you need to get it done. It's really kind of comes down to, you can take an ordinary object and transform it into something sacred if you have the right intention. So
and that's most of the time. Like I've always, my thing is, it's always been what you put into it is what you expect, because it seems to me like the better the offering, the better the result, because you're offering something. If you're just giving something cheap, like, I just threw this together, they're going to, it's going to kind of be that thing back to you. It's like, yeah, they're not really serious. So yeah. Okay.
Well, that's true. I mean, I think we mentioned like, when we were talking about the fairy kingdom before, like you don't leave them your leftovers. You have to give them like a proper piece of cake or whatever, something something would serve your most treasured and honored guest. So,
the thing about burning a candle down, I said I hadn't really thought about that because you don't want to use one of those giant candles and light that. It's going to be lit forever before that thing burns out.
When you set up an altar, my wife won't let me set an altar up in the house, so it has to be in the garage or back porch. She's like, candles are not burning in my house when we're not home. I'm like, but I can't put it out.
Right. Yeah. That's seriously, like, especially ever since I had a kid and started, like, I own a home, so it's like, I actually care if this burns down. I started using the candles. It's like quick. But I actually had this wonderful. I was in Ireland last year, and I just happened upon this little shop, and I went in, and they had the perfect. I mean, they actually call them spell candles. This is the perfect candles. They come in all colors, and they're about this big, and so they're bigger than a birthday candle. So they'll last a little bit longer, but they burn out in a reasonable amount of time. But that's funny because I have stopped people from blowing my candles out before.
Come back, think you're doing a good thing, and you just cast some bad juju on the house. You're like,
candle maker, which I had never heard before, and this had nothing to do with like ritual or occult, but she told me that candles have a memory. Wax has a memory. So the first time you burn a candle, you have to burn it so that the whole candle is all the way across, like completely liquefied. If you don't do that and you only burn it so like just the center is liquefied, you blow it out every time from there on out. Doesn't matter how many times you light that candle and how long you let it burn, it will always burn to that center. And and the other thing she said is you have to calculate like, an inch or so of a candle is about an hour. So when you light a candle, dedicate enough time to at least get that sort of like liquid top across the top, because someone had asked her, I was at a candle making class, this woman in Nashville, and they said, well, how come sometimes my candle just like burns in the middle? And I've had that happen with the 7-day candles where like the middle is just like, it just doesn't burn that well. And she said, candles have a memory and wax has a memory. And so you have to like, what you want the candle to do from there on out is, and I've, ever since she said that, I've tried it, and it's totally true. Now that would be candles, not, candles for specific ritualistic purposes. Those we've established you must let burn.
Yeah. No. Now, do you believe? Now, obviously there's different, different things. I mean, do you find that offerings of alcohol, whether the rum, are good offerings, or is that just, because you always see like voodoo, is rum. Just they typically give those things. I mean,
alcohol's always good. I think if you're trying to make contact with a specific, like, let's say you want to do an ancestral altar, because, you know, we're coming up on the time to do that.
Mhm.
You leave what they love. So if they loved whiskey, you put their favorite whiskey. If
Cigars, whiskey.
if they love cupcakes, you give them a cupcake. And in fact, that's absolutely part of the Dia de los Muertos tradition, is to spend not just, an afternoon, but days preparing the favorite foods of the loved ones, and setting them up upon the altar, and making breads and stews, and like, it's as if they're there, as if they're coming for a visit, right? That's the idea, is that they're coming for a visit, and you're going to give them everything that they would ever want. So yeah.
It's kind of
half step with the dead.
So what do you do with the offering after you've given it, like a cupcake or something? Because like the documentary Major League, showed you, like what happens when you drink the rum. Bad things happen.
Let's see. The only thing. Okay, Chris, have you ever eaten anything off an altar? Be honest.
You're supposed to. That's what they prepare the feast for. And like, as far as Santeria and voodoo, when they prepare the feast, nothing goes to waste. They pluck the chickens, they create the altar, and all that food get eating after they prepare a meal, and they eat it after the altar.
Yeah.
I don't know about as far as the witch side of it, but
I have eaten bread. I've eaten pan de muerto off the altar, like come home drunk and been like, sugar bread. I'm not gonna lie.
She ate the bread drunk off the altar.
I think my loved one appreciated that.
Well, that's because that's kind of what I was getting at. Is just where you've offered this cupcake, bread, whatever to this thing. It feels like you're taking that gift back and taking it away from consuming it yourself. And that's why how do you do it? I mean, do you just set it there for a certain amount of time and then bury it? Do you do something to it?
Some things can just be left out, right? Like some things can be left, but I think it's you share it with them. Like the tradition of like a dumb supper is very similar to that. It's a feast for the dead, where you set a table and a place for the person that you want to have there with you, and you have a silent conversation with them, and lay out food for them, and then you sort of dine with them. So, I don't mean, are you worried that you're going to get like it's the sins, right? You can like pick up the sins off the altar. I think it's totally fine. I mean, if it's been out for days, it could be not like.
Well, yeah, that was just me. I think it's like one of those. It's like when you've given a gift to somebody, it's like
let's say you make a pot of something and you just like leave a bowl. You're not going to leave like the whole pot. So.
Yeah, it's like the bowl. That's why I say it's like after a couple of days, you just that's why I said it's like you take the
probably eat it or like turn it into their garden or something. I don't know. That's probably a very personal experience.
Can you see
walk up with their favorite soup? It's like, all right, Grandpa, that's enough.
Oh yeah, Alex. Yeah. So I mean, of course, this is my experience just in having gone there. So when I've traveled to Mexico and been there during Dia de los Muertos, which may or may not
be fun.
Time I ate the pan de muerto drunk.
That happened.
It's incredible. It's incredible. And also just growing up in San Francisco, this was a part of our traditions every year. The parades and the painting your face like a skeleton and the celebration of the dead. Now, I grew up in an area where this was a very common occurrence every year. But when I was in Mexico, it's another level, because I think in California, it's kind of a maybe 2-3 day experience with some preparation for artists who are creating altars and things like that to be displayed in public. But
you got a sugar skull up there.
So we arrived 2 weeks before, and it was already happening. Oh, nice. See, Roberto.
Of course you were, Roberto.
Yeah. So, but
Roberto.
just throwing him out there. He's got the candles. He's got the
Bath and
birthday.
Body Works candles.
The Okay. But no, it was amazing because, we went out and there were flower markets open in the middle of the night, just full of marigolds and flowers, and days of celebration beforehand with roving minstrels going through the cemetery as people were sitting out there and they were, putting up their these beautiful floral things and little sugar treats and sugar skulls, and just like this incredible thing. And I thought, man, there's something about it. I feel like there's a very sort of Western European approach to the rituals of death that is severely, severely lacking, because there's a ritual of death, and then that's it. You're done. You stop mourning. You reread your obituary, and there is no acknowledgement of that return of that mourning and that process in which, just because time goes by, you still miss that person. They're still missing from your life. It's still part of the process. And there's this very clinical approach to mourning that I think in places like Mexico, it's just like, nope, we're bringing it all back. We're all sitting down here and we are going to sing songs. And actually, I found it to be a very sacred experience. And I actually felt like a bit of an intruder when it moved from the celebratory November 1st, and it moved into the midnight on November 2nd. And we were in this cemetery on Pátzcuaro, which is this island in the middle of a lake in Mexico, in the Michoacan area, I think is where it is. And the whole, like, you just felt like the energy changed. And I then at that point felt like like I was intruding on somebody's intimate mourning, because there were people sitting on graves, crying, like mourning. Yeah. And that was a very intimate experience. I have one photograph that I took at the beginning of the night, and it showed when you look at the cemetery, it's just like hundreds of orbs all over in the air, and it was just it's just a very different outlook toward the process of mourning, to allow yourself that ritual, to allow yourself that the remembrance. And it's, I think, something that we all can really benefit from, allowing ourselves to remember someone in a positive way, but also like be able to let that sorrow out, because even the sorrow is still there. You just gotta let it out somewhere. So
that's, man, I just looked up the clock. I can't believe how fast we're already at an hour and a half. I can't believe how fast time is going.
I know. We
have to next time when we have you on, it's like we'll have to start early and just give you. It's Varla Ventura Wednesday. Yeah, she's here for the whole hour. Yeah,
I love you guys. You guys are so easy to talk to.
Well, appreciate that. Thank you. I'm just from the last show and this show. I mean, I can't thank you for coming on the show. It's been so much fun.
I gotta plug my store.
Oh yeah. Okay. Oh no, absolutely. You're not.
The store. Yeah, there's Varla Ventura. You too. Wait, see if I get this right. You too can have a all-nighter trucker hat and many other cool things, including Varla Ventura totes and stuff like that. So wait, I don't know why that's crooked, because I'm crooked.
It was looking pretty cool.
It's got my logo on there. We're just adding things every day. We've got some fun things like the changeling onesie for your baby, and journals and mugs and such. And whenever I think of a clever pun that I can somehow shove onto an item of clothing or hat, I
do like the changeling on the onesie. When you're changing, you got the changeling.
I like this one. Ride drunk, edit sober.
That's my personal motto. Yeah.
I love it. Really love it. Rags the witches.
Get it? It's a trucker hat, and this is all nighter. Because you're a trucker.
I love it, man.
That's cool. So yeah, go to varlaventura.net. Definitely support her. She's been gracious enough to come on here.
Shop.
Go to Amazon. I mean, I feel like I personally robbed her when I bought the Paranormal Parlor book on Amazon. Yeah.
It's fine. But it's great that you bought it. Thank you for buying it.
Well, that was the thing. I was telling the guys, I got the thing. It was like, with shipping, it was $7.
Oh, it's on sale. Hey,
And I was
everybody! Paranormal Parlor's on sale.
Yeah, I was
Oh, wait,
like,
I covered
I
it.
feel, I
Paranormal
go, I
Parlor.
feel like I'm ripping her off when I'm buying this book. You know, it's like,
You
man,
are, but it's okay. It's
I
really the
know.
publisher's ripping me
So,
off.
well, I'm gonna. So I'll make it up to you when I buy the mermaids one because we got to have you back on. You know, we're gonna have to talk mermaids for sure.
Oh God, Mark.
Incredibly disturbing image, Mark.
Can you imagine a full-grown man-sized onesie? You know,
I can, and I will never unsee it.
oh my God, it's awesome.
Damn it, Mark.
Oh, so yes. So you definitely. I mean, that's an image. You know, I'm not even sure if we want to see that. You know, for sure. That's
It's already in my brain. It's done for now.
Never unsee that.
we've all imagined it now.
There's Chris.
So, yeah, but hey, Chris. Yeah, well, welcome to the show. Yeah, but everybody, once again, yeah, go to varlaventura.net. You know, support her, help her make up for the fact that I robbed her on her book for only $7. You know, go buy some.
Publisher.
Yeah, so I'll make that up to you.
Make it up to her and buy a T-shirt or a trucker hat.
Yeah, or a
That's right.
trucker hat. Check that every day. We're adding new items every day. Every time I think of a pun that I can, yeah. I think I told you guys like off air, so you can put anything on anything, which is like a dangerous thing for me because it just becomes So you never know what's going to appear on there.
But so yeah, well, I'll off air. I'll message you. So we'll try to get you on another time, like I said, because we definitely need to schedule so we could talk about mermaids. You know, make
we can do a whole show about mermaids. Yeah, I know you guys did one. It actually was not as bad as
we did one. Oh yes,
you had. They are what are they beautiful?
No, this was the infamous episode where I was like, "Hey, Chris, did you study?" He's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "All right. So what do we know about that thing? They're magical, mythical creatures, and that's it. That's all he had. That was it."
It was very convincing.
I was like, it was that moment. All I knew, the only thing he knew about mermaids was Disney, The Little Mermaid. That was it. That's the only thing I knew he knew. That they were half naked woman, half fish. That's all he knew.
Yeah. You gotta forgive us. That was like our third episode. You gotta forgive us. We're like 100 in now.
It's not as bad as you think it is. It's not as far off. I mean, you guys. I think you did okay.
Yeah. Well, that's very kind of you to say okay, because I appreciate that very much. Thank you. So, thank you again. Appreciate you giving your time to come on again.
Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween to everybody.
Yeah. Happy safe haunting out there. Take care of yourselves. Take care of your beards.
This is this and 4th of July.
These are the beardos.
The beardos.
3 beardos. Yeah. Beard oil.
We talked about that actually. We got to figure out
how to put that on a t-shirt.
We're going to make one, but we also need to send it to you so that way you can have the beard on a stick. Because remember we talked about that to where you can just hold it up.
I think I should get a beard. I should wear a beard on the next one.
Just come on. Yeah, just one of those ones you just hook on real quick. So awesome. Well, thank you so much. Yeah, everybody.
Marriage proposals that night. I'll tell you that.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, take care. Like I said, we will talk to you
for having me. It's been beautiful.
We always enjoy it. Like I said, you came back again, so we obviously did something right the first time.
Right.
So, all right. Well, I'll message it. Like I said, we'll figure out a time to get you on. We'll see what your schedule looks like, and then we'll make that happen.
Sounds great. All right,
awesome.
Guys.
All right. We'll talk to you later.
Okay. Good night.
All right, everybody. This fantastic episode was brought to you by Brot's Beard Care Premium Beard Oil, made here in Winter Garden by Kelly Brott himself. We have our signature blend, 3B. A couple people that I know of personally that have used it love that blend. They love the way it smells. And when you buy a bottle of this, you support us and Kelly, and you feed the gnomes that are that he uses to help him craft these things. And it's and he's got the bag there in his face. I'm not sure what he's trying to do to that right now. Yeah.
This stuff makes your beard soft, man. It's the best.
Oh yeah. Go to broadsbeardcare.com, use promo code 3beards with the capital B. You're going to save 20% off on your order, and you get free shipping on those as well. Nanny Cakes, Nancy Burke. Go to Nanny Cakes 407 on Facebook, or give her a call at 407-923-2898. And you're going to save 15% on a cake here in the Central Florida area. Outside of there, it's really hard to ship. If anybody's asked, that's awesome. Appreciate it. I mean, we always joke about it, but it's really hard to ship a cake, outside of a natural delivery area. So, but Central Florida area, everywhere else, it'll be cake ball. I mean, what can we say? Three Beards. Yep. threebeardspodcast.com. Go to patreon.com/threebeardspodcast. Support us. Become a beardo. Just like Varla Ventura said, become a beardo. Yeah. Become one of us. Check us out on social media. Like, share it, subscribe on YouTube. Help us out, get the word out there. And everybody, I want to thank everybody for watching. Appreciate it. It was a fun night. Varla Ventura, thank you so much. Everybody, have a great night. We will see you next Wednesday. Good night.